Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has laid down a new set of conditions to end the ongoing onslaught in Gaza. And at the center of his ultimatum lies the full-scale implementation of US President Donald Trump's Gaza plan. A plan that includes evacuating the entire population of Gaza and repurposing the territory. This is the first time that Netanyahu has openly made this condition a formal prerequisite for a ceasefire.
I'm ready to end the war on clear terms that will ensure Israel's security. All the hostages return home, Hamas lays down its arms, steps down from power, its leadership is expelled from the Strip. Meaning, whoever remains of it, Gaza is completely disarmed and we implement the Trump plan. A plan that is so correct and so revolutionary.
Netanyahu praised Trump's proposal, suggesting it could permanently reshape the dynamics of West Asia. He argued that removing the Palestinian population and redeveloping Gaza under US authority will ensure long-term security for Israel and economic growth for the area. Trump has previously called Gaza a future Riviera of the East, proposing an American-led reconstruction plan. Well, Netanyahu's endorsement of this strategy signals a direct attack on the two-state solution, because if Gaza becomes an American protectorate, it could effectively erase Palestinian hopes for statehood. Netanyahu also promised that by the end of the Gaza war, Hamas will cease to exist as a governing force. Gaza will be disarmed, which in effect will mean the end of any threat to Israel's borders.
Our forces are capturing more and more territories to clear them of terrorists and Hamas's terror infrastructure. And at the end of this process, all of the Gaza Strip will be under Israeli security control and Hamas will be completely defeated.
Netanyahu clarified that Israel remains open to ending the war, but only on his terms. These include the return of all hostages, the dismantling of Hamas, and the full rollout of Trump's plan. Without all these assurances, Netanyahu made it clear that the war in Gaza that has killed at least 61,000 people, by some estimates, will continue. On the possibility of a truce to allow for more returns of hostages, Netanyahu said he was ready for a temporary ceasefire.
If there is an option for a temporary ceasefire to free additional hostages, and I emphasize, a temporary ceasefire, we'll be ready.
On reports about tensions with Trump, Netanyahu dismissed the charge, saying both Trump and the US Vice President J.D. Vance recently reassured him that America stands firmly with Israel. Because earlier this week, several reports suggested that Trump had rather delivered a stark warning to Netanyahu to end the Gaza war soon or risk losing American support. Meanwhile, a far-right Israeli lawmaker's comments has sparked a major controversy. The lawmaker told an Israeli news channel that every child, every baby in Gaza is an enemy. His comments come at a time when aid agencies, including the United Nations, warned that nearly 2 million Gazans are on the brink of famine, with the UN humanitarian chief stating that up to 14,000 babies are at a risk of dying from malnutrition. US President Donald Trump is not only doubling down on America's missile defense, he is also expanding America's nuclear arsenal. After unveiling the ambitious Golden Dome missile defense project, the US Air Force has now test-launched a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile in what many are calling a doomsday missile test. On Wednesday, an unarmed Minuteman III ICBM was launched from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The missile flew above over 4,200 miles at the speed of 15,000 miles per hour to a US Army test site in the Marshall Islands. The Air Force says this test was routine. General Thomas Bozzeri of US Global Strike Command said that the launch shows the strength of US nuclear deterrent and the readiness of America's nuclear triad. While the missile carried no live warhead, it is designed to deliver one. The Minuteman III is a part of a Cold War-era system that the Pentagon says will soon be replaced by the next-gen Sentinel system. But until then, the old deterrent remains very much in place and in play. The US has also completed assembly of the B-6130 nuclear aerial bomb, and it has been completed a year ahead of schedule. This modernized Cold War-era gravity bomb has a higher yield than its predecessor and is designed for deep penetration and tactical strikes. US Secretary of Energy Chris Wright praised the milestone, saying it strengthens America's hand against today's global threats and supports what he calls Trump's peace through strength agenda. The B-6113 can only be delivered reportedly by strategic bombers and will remain based within the continental US. According to US officials, it provides new strike options against hardened or large military targets. Its yield comparable to the B-6117, at least 360 kilotons. That's the weight of it. Just to give you an idea, it is more than 22 times the force of the Hiroshima bomb. So what's next? The Department of Energy says it's currently working on 6 other warhead modernization programs to ensure the long-term viability of the US nuclear stockpile. All this comes just a day after Trump announced the futuristic Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield project that is aimed at neutralizing everything from ICBMs to drones and even hypersonic missiles. Trump says he wants it up and running in 3 years, that's before the end of his second term. The full cost? Approximately $175 billion. But experts say that the main obstacles to getting it up and running are cost, industrial capacity, and political will. So on one hand, a high-tech Golden Dome to shield America from enemy attacks, and on the other, a deeper, deadlier nuclear arsenal together. And together, both of this, they will form the core of Trump's evolving nuclear doctrine of deterrence and of defense as well. 3 years since it began, the Russia-Ukraine war rages beyond the battlefield. While tanks roll and missiles strike, there's another war which is being fought. One of spies and sanctions. 11 Western countries have accused a Russian military intelligence hacking group of targeting defense, transport and tech firms involved in helping Ukraine. They have now issued a joint statement against the Russian campaign, which targeted organizations involved in the coordination, transport and supply of foreign assistance to Ukraine. They say Unit 26165 of the Russian Military Intelligence Service, also known in the cybersecurity world as Fancy Bear or APT-28, carried out the campaign for more than 2 years. UK even went on to say that Russia's GRU unit accessed cameras near crossings, military installations and rail stations at key European locations. The MI6 Secret Service further alleged that Russia tried to hack into border security cameras to spy on and disrupt the flow of Western aid entering Ukraine. But how is the West responding to all of this? With tools of economic warfare. The European Union is readying a fresh round of sanctions against Russia after leaders threatened Moscow with a massive economic punishment for not agreeing to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Remember, after the 2-hour phone call between the US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, Trump said that the ceasefire talks will begin immediately. However, Moscow has not set a deadline for next steps. Since Russian tanks rolled over Ukraine's border 3 years ago, the EU has sought to hurt Moscow's war effort with unprecedented sanctions. In the latest, the European Union approved a 17th round of sanctions package against Russia. However, all these sanctions have failed to collapse Russia's economy. Despite several rounds of talks, there's still no ceasefire in sight. And while diplomats posture and economies brace for retaliation, the true battle rages behind the screens. hackers versus firewalls, secrets versus counterintelligence. We now shift attention to the East China Sea, where Chinese military helicopters and foreign aircraft reportedly faced off in a string of confrontations. According to Chinese state media, the PLA recorded 11 aerial incidents over 10 straight days. These mid-air encounters reportedly brought helicopters from both the sides within a mere 10 meters of each other, a distance that leaves zero room for error. Although Beijing has not named the foreign military involved, the Chinese state media report described them as deliberate provocations. The incidents reportedly involved a pilot from the PLA's Ground Forces Aviation Corps operating under the Eastern Theatre Command, the division responsible for military operations in the East China Sea and across the Taiwan Strait. It is worth noting here that the PLA Ground Forces helicopters typically don't engage in maritime interceptions due to their limited operational range. The PLA Z-19, the light reconnaissance and attack chopper believed to be used in these face-offs, only has a radius of around 200 to 250 kilometers. And this suggests that these confrontations likely occurred very close to China's coastline. A PLA pilot claimed that he spotted the foreign helicopter amid low visibility and determined that it had been launched from a nearby warship. He added that the same aircraft returned the next day, prompting a pursuit above the clouds. In recent years, Chinese and foreign militaries have routinely come face to face in these contested skies and waters, often dangerously very close. Well, the East China Sea is an important, vital body of water bordered by several key countries. To the west, it touches the eastern coastline of China. To the north lies South Korea, and to the east, Japan's southern islands. To the south, Taiwan claims sovereignty over some islands. Well, all these countries have either direct economic interests in the region or ongoing territorial disputes that have made the East China Sea one of the most militarized and politically sensitive maritime zones in the world. On to the United Kingdom now. In a landmark sovereignty deal, the UK has agreed to transfer sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, and that's after a High Court ruling cleared the way for Prime Minister Keir Starmer to sign the controversial deal. Earlier, the United Kingdom was temporarily barred from signing the deal after London High Court judge issued a last-minute injunction only to lift it later on. The legal action was brought by two women, British nationals born on Diego Garcia, who arrived at London Royal Courts of Justice ahead of a hearing taking place at the High Court, with a lawyer for these women saying that the case now moves into the political sphere.
I understand that the deal is being signed imminently. The case will continue in relation to a declaration the government is acting unlawfully in relation to the Chagosian people by not consulting them, failing to take into account a number of matters, including discrimination they face. So the claim will continue there, but it becomes a political process.
The deal, first announced in October, sees the UK ceding sovereignty of the Chagos archipelago to Mauritius, while retaining control of the strategic US-UK military base on Diego Garcia, which is the largest island under a new 90-year lease. The base playing a critical role in Western defense operations across the Indian Ocean. But why has this island come to the spotlight? Disputed between Mauritius and the UK, the islands have long been a flashpoint for debates on self-determination and post-colonial territorial integrity, tracing back to 1965 when Britain separated the Chagos Islands from Mauritius, while Mauritius argued that the islands are an inalienable part of its territory. The UK maintained its sovereignty, asserting that the island needs to be retained for military purposes. And now, UK setting to sign this deal could mean ending decades of dispute and negotiation over Britain's last African colony. As per a Reuters report, the UK government endorsed the deal as the right decision to protect the British people and the country's national security. In February, US President Donald Trump voiced his support for the deal following a meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Washington, D.C. However, critics warn that the deal could be a strategic mistake, suggesting it hands diplomatic leverage to China, which maintains strong trade ties with Mauritius. What happens next? The coming days shall reveal more.